Hi, I'm Randy Cantrell. Welcome to the Year of the Peer podcast with Leo Batari. This podcast is based on a simple truth. Who you surround yourself with matters. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari will interview thought leaders from all walks of life who will share how they leverage peer advantage and show you how engaging your peers more purposefully can hold the key to greater success in business and in life. Today's guest is Brian McMahon. Brian is the founder of Expert Dojo, the largest startup high-performance center for entrepreneurs in Southern California. He has consulted and coached in over 35 countries and brings a global perspective to starting and growing your small business. For years, Brian has been teaching the power of connecting with your community and how to turn a pay-it-forward mindset into a revenue generator. He also speaks all over the world on how to start, grow, and expand any business. We welcome Brian to the show.
Brian McMahon, welcome to the show. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you. We've been talking about this all year to make sure that you would be part of the Year of the Peer and you could lend your voice to this conversation. I think it's one that is a real important one. You have helped business leaders and entrepreneurs all over the world. You head up Expert Dojo, which I would love for you to talk more about. And I don't think there's anyone who understands better this idea that who you surround yourself with matters and the difference it can make in people's lives and in their success. So welcome to the show. What I'd love for you to do, if you could, is for some of our viewers, at least, who may not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and about Expert Dojo.
I kind of was hoping the podcast will be finished just after that really nice intro. I just say, well, thanks very much. It's been a great show. I really enjoyed it. I am early stage entrepreneurship. That's it. That's everything that embodies what I do and what Expert Dojo represents. Personally, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years, 25, 30 years. In 30, 40 countries. And in all that time, I've learned a few things. I've learned that pretty much we're all the same. We all have the same needs and wants. Culturally, we may grow up in different ways, but we all want some form of freedom in our expression, some form of freedom in our creativity, and to be a part of something which is bigger than ourselves, but something that we have a really big input in. The challenge that most people face, and entrepreneurship is just a really good picture into the world on this, is that most of us are afraid because we're taught to be afraid. Right from when I got a little boy who's 11 years old, and he still hasn't had the non-fearness beaten out of him. But he will. Over the next 2 or 3 years in school, he'll put up his hand, 3 times in 4 and 5. And then, a couple of teachers will tell him that was a stupid thing to say. And then slowly, he'll stop putting up his hand and he'll become like everybody else. And entrepreneurship is really the rebirth of that expression, of that feeling, which is what makes it so beautiful and why it's kind of so sad that more people don't get an opportunity to go into it. So that's my party political broadcast about why everybody in the world should be an entrepreneur and shouldn't just be content making it to the finish line. I haven't told you anything about me, but what the hell? Whenever I get asked about me, I go into a rant on why everybody should be an entrepreneur all over the world. But you want me to give you a little bit of an intro on kind of where I come from and what my journey's been like?
I really would. I think it would really be helpful to kind of create a context for us. That'd be great.
Awesome. Yeah, okay, cool. So literally back in England, 25 years ago, had a property development company, did fine, nothing particularly exciting or exuberant or filled full of purpose, but it's one of the oldest professions in the world, and it tends to be one that you're kind of guaranteed to make money as long as you can hang on to your product for long enough so you can sell it for a higher price. And we did fine. We had lots of properties come in, lots of properties come out, and we sell them and did very well. I then had a consulting company, which was in over about 35 countries around the world. One of the largest clients that we ended up being our main client, and they were huge, and we followed them pretty much everywhere. I had that for about 10 years, did great, was fortunate and blessed in that I got to travel everywhere from China to Mexico and Peru and Panama and Russia, and then just layer on another 20 or 30 countries in that same type of global region. Then really enjoyed that, moved on to technology, started off a tech enterprise, had big money windfalls from the first two businesses. The tech one was fine. It did okay. Sold it. Wasn't a huge exit, but it was an okay exit. It did okay. And what it showed me was that there's a big difference between being a service entrepreneur, right? So someone who's got a large consulting company, or possibly somebody who's got I would say, property development company, to a tech entrepreneur. And as I looked around here down in LA, I noticed that there were so many companies failing, literally 97, 98, 99%. So I wasn't the only one that was noticing that it was a particularly hard endeavor. And then as the last 10 years have really progressed, kind of every company in some form has become a tech company. So I started up what was originally a training academy here in Santa Monica on top of the mall. We took a beautiful facility, about 8,000 square feet. The original objective was just to study. It wasn't to help or to serve or to do anything. It was to understand. So we brought in about 80, 100 companies, and we just watched them. And we said, look, we're not going to charge you anything. We're not going to ask you for anything. And you know what? We're not going to give you anything either. We're just going to watch you. But the cool thing is you get to have some space and you get to hang out and you get to be with a bunch of other companies and see how that journey goes. And we learned a few things after about 6 months, which we believe are absolutely directly linked to the high level of failure within early stage entrepreneurship. First thing is that we have a very poor community. And not just in LA, I mean in the United States. And for all of those people who will be listening to the podcast and saying, oh, no, we don't. We've got very nice neighbors and very nice people down the road. When I say community, I mean a infrastructure that supports the rest of the infrastructure. I don't mean people being nice to each other. Everybody's very nice. It's not about being nice. It's about how do we support each other so everybody can help each other up to the next step, up to the next level. And we struggle in that area here. And I can mention some countries afterwards that I think do it really well, but we definitely need help. So that was a great learn and something that we knew we could directly impact in. The second area is education. We're not educated to be entrepreneurs. We're educated to be non-entrepreneurs. We're educated to work in a factory, whatever the factory is, a CPA factory, an attorney factory, something else. So we need to learn. We need to find out how to do branding, how to do product fit, how to acquire users, how to build the right foundation, how not to be taken advantage of, all those things. So, and this, of course, is the fault of our schools and all the way up. But we all have to take our part in fixing the problem. And again, is an area that we could get directly involved in. Third area was, interestingly enough, to do with investment. And we noticed that a lot of the entrepreneurs were coming in and the first thing they wanted to do was just get investment immediately, which is really counterintuitive to how business is done. What's supposed to happen in business is you have an idea, you develop the idea, you start the idea. Like take a lemonade stand. You go out there, you put your little table up, you put your lemonade, and then you see if somebody pays 50 cents. And if the lemonade stand beside you is getting 65 cents because they've got the stand all pimped out and it's looking great, then maybe you got to look at your brand for your lemonade stand. But what you don't do is the day you come up with an idea of a lemonade stand, you say, well, what we're going to need is $300,000 so we can deal with the entire infrastructure of the lemonade stand. So that toxic relationship has caused problems both with startups and with investors, and has put us into a really, really bad situation for early stage startups today. And then the final area that we found was with regards to lean startup. Now, I would say, I would not take what I say as absolute gospel word as being true, because I am the only person in America who believes this. However, we find lean startup to be a fundamental bad aspect of all early stage startup activity. So what do I mean by that? I mean, look, there's some parts of it which are fine. They're like second grade teaching. You shouldn't spend very much money. Okay, great. We learned that. Or ask a few whys. Great, we learned that too. That's all okay. The areas that are really damaging are the areas where There's no branding required for a company. You just go in and rapid prototype. There's no business planning or milestoning required for a company. You just go and rapid prototype as quick as you can and get your product out and then check. It's just insane. It makes, in my mind, and look, there's no black and white, but in my mind, it just makes no sense at all. It would be like me saying, I'm going to open an Italian restaurant next week just up the road in 3rd Street Promenade. And don't worry, if it doesn't work, no problem, because I'm going to do an Irish restaurant because I can serve Guinness in 2 months' time. It's just not make sense, because startups can't afford to do it 2 or 3 or 4 times. So end of the story is we created an accelerator, an incubator, and a training academy here where we bring in about 500 companies every single year. We train them, we educate them, we connect them, we help with their relationships to investors. We've got many startups investment directly. And then afterwards, the ones we really like, we either incubate them within the Expert Dojo system, which means that we pay for everything from their CEOs to their product to their development, or we put them into our venture studio where we either give them a little bit of cash ourselves or help them find investment and take a piece of their company in the future. And yeah, we've never looked back. We love what we do.
So a couple things. One, first of all, for our audience, tell them a little bit about where Expert Dojo, the name, came from, and why do you think it's so important and such a part of really, I think, accurately communicating what you do and what you're all about.
So 2 things happened to me. I've lived in LA for 5 years, and I was in New York before that. So I think I still have a very New York mindset. I'm very direct with people. I'm very honest with people. I do it straight away. I've kind of been tainted by LA in that whenever I'm going to give feedback, I'll ask for permission. I'll say, look, what I'm about to say to you is going to come across as possibly rude, and it's not meant to be, but I won't tell you if you don't want to hear it. And then I'll tell them. But because I feel what I love about New York is you just say it as it is, and you say it straight away. Time is the most important component we have, so there's just a big respect for it. So the 2 things I found in LA were, number one, when I first came here, and you've seen this place is full of free beer and pizza parties, right? So if ever I'm homeless in the future, I'm going to be going to free beer and pizza parties in LA, because you've got one every single night. And I remember the first one I went to, and I went back to my wife, and I said to her, man, this place is so cool. It was like, I just went out, I met all these awesome creative people. They're changing the world. These guys are great. It was great. We had some beers, we had some pizza. It didn't cost anything. My world is complete. And then what happened was 6 months later, every single one of them had disappeared. And then this cycle, it was like children of the corn, right? Where the entrepreneurs get sent out of the field when they've been in LA for a certain period of time and they've totally run out of money, and nobody ever sees them again. It's really scary. If Stephen King, if you're listening, this is just a perfect next novel for you. It's like Children of the Startup. So that's what I first saw, is that we all enter this with so much enthusiasm, and then we just disappear very quickly afterwards. And the second thing I noticed in those same parties was it was maybe 50% entrepreneurs and then 50% experts. And those experts were people who know absolutely everything. They're perfect. I saw one, yes, I actually saw one talking to one of our startups yesterday, and he walked over and said, I can absolutely guarantee you $5 million that we're going to get for your startup. There's not a problem in the world. It's going to happen. Consider it done. Just imagine like the money's here, and my consultancy fee will be $3,000 a month, but it should only take us 2-3 months to get it, but pretty much the money's already in the bank. So that's what I mean by experts. Okay? So those of you who can't see me, I've got 4 fingers doing little inverted comma marks, because everybody's a damn expert. But really, when we look into a lot of the expertise that's there, there's no complete experts. I'm not a complete expert. Most of the people I know are not complete experts. We know a lot about little things, and then we try and become in a culture of learning every single day so we can find out more, because our place is a place of serving. And what I really like about the dojo mentality is, again, there are no experts. There is no black belt expert. There's black belt first dan, second dan. Like, you're in a place of continually improving the expertise that you have. So I felt it created a balance. rather than a relationship where you have all these big, incredible experts or investors up in the high level and then the startups on the low level. It creates a balance for everybody. We all have an expertise, we all have a currency to give, and we all intend to continually improve our currency. So it just seemed very fitting.
Well, I want to actually, though, maybe next get back to this point that you made a little earlier when you talked about what a truly supportive community looks like, and that there are countries that do it really well. So a couple things. Certainly, you feel free to name some of the countries that do it well, but I also want to know...
I'll tell you the worst in the world, Ireland. Ireland, country. If anybody from Ireland is listening, especially in the government in Ireland are listening, you suck. You are the worst in the world. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to give you a great comparison about why Ireland are so horribly, miserably, disgustingly bad.
Create the contrast between the worst and the best, and because I want you to paint a picture of what those things look like.
So here's why I struggle with Ireland. I left Ireland 20 years ago. I go back every Christmas. I go back every summer. I love the people of Ireland. I love what it's made me and what I contribute over here in the States. So it's a beautiful thing. What really hurts me is when I keep hearing people saying about Ireland being this country, which is a great tech country. But immediately I arrived here in LA, I reached out to the Irish enterprise folks and said, hey, we've got loads of startups here that we can help bring over to Ireland. And actually, if you've got Irish startups that you want to help, we're really happy to help with those folks as well. And they said, nah, we don't really do that, Brian. You know, we're kind of a small team. Here's what we do. We wait until a company becomes really, really big and successful. Normally 200 to 400 people. And then we wait until they're paying a lot of taxes in a country. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but you get the idea. And then we say to them, hey guys, how would you like to pay no tax at all? Or virtually no tax? Wouldn't that be awesome? And then the company goes, yeah, okay, it's going to save us like 20 or 30 or $50 million a year. And then the only things we have to do is go to Ireland. And then they say, yeah, but that's good too. We're going to give you tax breaks on all of the people that you hire in Ireland. So here's what happens. It's a cheap solution. You bring over large companies which are already established, so you cut out the entire creation that should be happening in the country. You don't create the right fundamental disciplines within Ireland for Irish companies to become really great. And you have this gerrymandering type of mentality where the only people who are successful are the people who are in Enterprise Ireland, the people who are in the government, the people who are in the large consultancy firms over there, and then the people who are the large CEOs over there. And the Irish people get screwed with higher taxes and worse everything else. Not only do the Irish people get screwed, but the rest of the world gets screwed. So yeah, Ireland as a country are awesome. Ireland as a government are a disgusting disgrace. Now, let me give you a good contrast. Israel, right? Now, Israel do some things which I really like. They, about 15, 20 years ago, they came up with Startup Nation. And Startup Nation pretty much said, listen, we're on our own, we're over here, whatever anybody feel about Israel and how Israel work and where they are and what they're surrounded by, like they got nothing around them, right? It's not like us where I'm in California, I got New York, which is just a couple of states to the right. I got Texas, a couple of states down to the right. Like, it's a great world. Like, I've got so much resource that I can do so much with. But Israel didn't have that. So they said, everybody's a startup forever. So our community means that if you're a large company in our community, then you have to help our smaller companies. You have to work with our smaller companies. Now, I'll give you an example of what I mean with a large company that I'm working with over here right now, and I'm hoping we can do this. When we first started speaking with them, they have about 30 or 40,000 suppliers to them in the United States. So they're a very large company, Fortune 1000 company. And when I first started speaking to them, they said, hey, we want to maybe have an accelerator, or possibly we'll do some parties. We want to be part of the community and we want to get involved. And I said, well, that's not really being part of the community and getting involved. We don't need any more free parties. We got plenty of free parties to celebrate the failure we have going down here. Why don't you actually help? If your business is in working with startups all the time, which they do. I had the same conversation with Shopify last night. If your business is in the same business as working with startups, then you have thousands of suppliers that you can impact immediately. And all you would have to say to your suppliers is, if you're not helping a startup, you're not a supplier of ours. And helping a startup means You can invest in them if you want. You can mentor them if you want. You can have them as suppliers if you want. You can just be vocal about helping them if you want. Damn it, you can even walk past one in a friggin' Starbucks and see if they need any help if you want. Like, it doesn't matter. But what matters is this. We have absolutely lost the essence of what small business is here in the United States and many other places as well. But it's just sadder here because the venture capitalists in many ways now control what our businesses look like. Everybody wants to have $1 billion business. Everybody wants to take the quickest, fastest route there, which is venture capital money. If anybody's following the Uber situation right now, they'll know that it's not all a bed of roses once you get to that type of place. And we've kind of lost that middle layer of just ordinary people starting up great ordinary businesses and being supported by the business community that they're inside. Israel just happened to do a phenomenal job on that. And we modeled a lot of what we do here in the accelerator on their accelerator, which is the 8200 over in Israel, which we really like. Those guys, they just have a very high success rate. Everything is not about one or two companies becoming unicorns. It's about no company being left behind.
So tell us a little bit then about how you are structured at Expert Dojo. So if I'm a entrepreneur and I'm in LA and I'm interested in trying to access the services because I'm feeling kind of by myself and I'm just trying to figure it all out, what does that start to look like for me? How would I look at Expert Dojo?
So we believe strongly in the funnel, and that means that companies getting involved and just learning before they come into the venture studios. So we have under the program section of the site, which is pretty easy to find, it's in yellow. You've got about 7 or 8 different training programs. We have a milestone sprint. Let me actually speak. We have like Find Investment, which is a good program if you want investment. And we have Find Users if you want to get you want to get users on that program as well. But I want to specifically speak to the milestone sprint one because it's actually one of the biggest reasons that most startups fail. Now, a lot of people will say, well, startups fail because maybe our product was wrong, or maybe our team was wrong, or maybe our process was wrong, but that's not the case. It's always, always, always that we ran out of time. Because if you think about it, Amazon lost $6 billion before they made money. And I'm sure Jeff Bezos didn't have the perfect team at the start. And I'm sure he didn't have the perfect product. And I'm sure his process was all over the place. Must have been, right? But he had $6 billion and 10 years to get it right. Now, if Jeff Bezos had only had a year, you think Amazon would be what Amazon are today? Right? They wouldn't be. So it's all about creating that milestone map to get to the optimal place to be successful. Now, what does successful look like? Successful means that you have, I would say, enough money to cover the expenses of your business. You have enough money to cover your personal expenses, including your salary. And you have enough money to cover marketing and for the following month and Murphy's Law for bad things that might happen, right? Now, we don't need to have that in month one because most of us, when we start a business, we've allocated funds for a certain period of time. The average time when things start to get really bad is 18 months. So we have, and normally the life cycle of a startup is first 5 or 6 months is this beautiful honeymoon period where everything's great and we call ourselves CEO and we get t-shirts with our name on them. Just in case you can't see that, I got t-shirts.
There you go. Yeah.
I got t-shirts with our name on
them. I need to get one of those.
I got you. We're telling all of our family and friends, hey, we're successful, we made it. And that normally lasts about 5-6 months. And during that period, we're playing with things, branding, product fit, maybe a little bit of website dev. Then the next 12 months are filled full of frustration because everything we're trying to do, just a little bit frustrating. It's not distraction or being distraught yet, but it is frustrating because the website, which was supposed to take 3 weeks, takes 5. The design wasn't exactly what it was supposed to look like. The site isn't exactly the way it needs to get users. The marketing didn't exactly work the way the person who promised you to be on the first page of Google told you it was going to work. So it's just a little bit frustrating, but it's okay. The following 6 months are the most dangerous months because they are the months that one by one people start to lose a little bit of faith in you. Because now you've been going for 14, 15 months. You're not making money on your business. It's taking you longer than you thought to get everything ready. And suddenly somebody very close to you says something like, I really, really believe in your business. I think you're going to do a phenomenal job. But do you think maybe you'd want to take a part-time job just to make sure that you're okay? It's said very lovingly, right?
Right.
It's that first inkling of doubt that maybe you're not going to be Elon Musk, right? And the challenge with this whole thing is that it's contagious. And then another person mentioned, and another, and another, and another. And then month 19 or month 20, you're driving an Uber car. And then month 25, 30, you're not sleeping, you've got insomnia. And month 33, your business is gone. So we draw this milestone plan from month 1 to month 18, and we put it up on our website. And we get people to commit right at the start for all 18 months. We don't need you to hit your expenses and make your money and pay your salary in month 1, but you have to be able to do it in month 18. And in month 1, it has to be able to track through to month 18. All we ask people to put in is, and we have all of the algorithms built on the website. It's really cool actually when people do it, because we also allow investors to track how people are actually doing against the milestones they set. So month 1 would be, they would have the revenue, the users, the prospects, and then the 4 marketing channels that they're going to hit to achieve those goals that they need to achieve. And then month 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, all the way through to month 18. And they do this the first day they come into Expert Dojo. And then it's all filled out on their site. And any investors who like the look of them, they follow them, they look at them, and then rather than being asked to marry on a first date, they get to court these entrepreneurs and actually build a relationship based on what they're doing on a daily basis. So it works really well. So I love the milestone course. Like, the individual components of the milestone course are cool because they cover the branding and the product fit and everything else. But I just love the fact that it forces people to actually put monetary figures in their head, where rather than waiting for 18 months to fail, they fail in month 2 or month 1 or month 3, and then they have to adapt and overcome and change what they were doing before. So yeah, and then by the way, sorry, the companies we really like who come through the program, then we'll put them into our venture studio where they'll never pay a dime for the rest of their lives. And even for the original stuff, it's not much. It's like $500 a month, and they get full access to the programs, full access to the site, and they can come in and use our spacer.
It's so interesting too, though, because clearly you give them a framework and a map and a real game plan. But at the same time, people oftentimes can have a great game plan, and left to their own devices, they don't execute it. And what have you seen when you bring people together, not only the experts and the mentors and all that, but people who were just going through the same experience, so that when people start whispering things to them that start to erode their confidence, maybe these folks can help build each other back up a little bit, right? I mean, what have you kind of seen? Because I know also that you've started to facilitate peer groups at Expert Dojo too. So I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, peer groups are everything. It's so important. When I speak about community, it's not just about the larger companies helping the smaller companies. It's about, we've all got a currency, every one of us. And if we're with the right people, so I always, I'm a big pay it forward guy. I have my pay it forward bracelet on all the time. So for me, it's about helping out, but you don't want to help out in a foolish way. You don't want to spend all of your time helping people who've got no direct benefit to what you're doing, because what will happen is this: you'll run out of time. And then you'll just end up the nicest poor guy on the side of the street. Much better to put yourself into a strong position, and then you can help as many people as you want, because you're financially and fiscally responsible and strong. So what I love about peer groups is the very first word. It's peer. You get people who have a currency to bring to the table. And then those people, the responsibility of everybody within the group is to help everybody else in the group. And when you do it properly, it's just fabulous, really fabulous. I've always loved peer groups. I've always felt that, it does a few things. It's not only does it force people to think about ways that they need to help the peer before the group happens, but it keeps everybody accountable. because you have a group of people around you who are not just going to accept, yeah, I didn't hit my numbers, it was a bad month. Well, let's hope it goes well next month. Because a proper peer group will say, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Even though
you raised a great point too, and this has come up with, not surprisingly, as you might imagine, with some of our other guests, where we've talked about the fact that the perfect metaphor for this is that when we're on an airplane and we're told that if the airplane loses cabin pressure, we put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, and then that's when we're able to calmly be able to help others and be of service to them. And I think it's really much of what you're talking about is put yourself in a position where you can help people, and that involves kind of making sure that you've got it together, yourself first, and clearly a common piece of advice for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love really serious people, and I love really serious groups. If I'm going to, and I think most of us outside peer groups don't take our time in many cases serious enough. We don't weigh the value. Like I hear people saying, well, it didn't cost me anything, it was just my time. And time is the only thing you have. So the really great thing about when you go into a peer group and you've got a 2-hour period or an hour and a half period, and the only thing that you're intending to do in that group is to become successful with each other, then it's great because everybody has a hyper focus on solving the problems that need to be solving so that everybody can then move on to a different chasm. I love that book, Crossing the Chasm, which talks about like the different segments of challenges you have. And sometimes you just need a bunch of other people to push you up a little bit so you can get past it.
How do you find these peers in terms of their willingness and ability to be open and share with one another, like right out of the gate? Or do you see that building over time, or do you often see people very willing to share right at that very first meeting, or how do you see that evolving when you see these groups work together?
It's been really powerful for us. We've been blown away. I don't know. I suppose impressed is better than blown away. I don't know why. I naively expected everybody to wanted to give and help each other because they're all at the same space. And what we did was we took early stage entrepreneurs are slightly more challenging than even later stage entrepreneurs or even people who've got a job. Because if you've got a job, then you're trying to go up the ladder always, and you're trying to make sure that you deal with politics always, and you're trying to make sure that you earn money always. And so there's always a kind of a continuum that goes forward. And later stage entrepreneurs, the same. You're kind of in a place where there's not huge change. But early stage entrepreneurs, one person could be in the middle of their branding exercise. The other person's in the middle of their product fit. The other person has got a concept. So they're on uneven areas within the section. So what I did right at the beginning was make sure that everybody was balanced. I thought at the beginning maybe we could put people in like somebody's looking for investment and somebody else is looking to make sure that the market validation is done, but no, it doesn't work. So you have to get people who've got common aligned interests, and that those aligned interests are going to stay aligned for at least a short to a medium term period of time. And that's what made it very easy, because I had 5 people in one of the groups that were all building a website at the same time. It's like, how great is that? That's 10 eyes looking at the customer journey, the user interface, the user experience, the design, the colors, the fonts of 5 websites. It's gold. I mean, you would normally have to pay a bunch of money for that. And then as they move to the next level, they move there together, and so on and so on.
Well, I think too, maybe the difference that you weren't blown away, but impressed, is because you are wired to help. And I think in many respects, you've got that expectation that of course others would be wired in that same way, but it's, I'm sure, really great to see it come together. You're in new space now, and I'd love for you to give a sense to people about kind of where you are now in terms of this new space, what's next for Expert Dojo, and how they can learn more about you.
So we came to an interesting place around 4 months ago, 4 months ago. Last time I saw you, we were opening up a Willy Wonka's across the road. We have like an 8,000 square foot facility here, and we were going to open up a facility which is a little bit bigger, like 13,000 square feet, right beside our facility, and create a Willy Wonka's. And we brought in 50 investors beforehand. I'm a great believer in in the wisdom of the crowd. As long as you streamline, which again is aligned with peer groups, but as long as you streamline and you're very clear about the questions that you're asking and the output that you're expecting from everybody else. So I brought 50 investors in here, and we spoke to them about our idea to create a accelerator where we would increase the size of the fund that we already had, where we would invest in more companies. And our model was that because our funnel was so good, because we got to know entrepreneurs so well beforehand, then we would get better companies, so we would have better success rates. And the investors came back and said two things. They said, number one, why are you only dealing with LA? Why don't you increase what you do and build training programs which are online, which can be seen all over the world? And why don't you take those companies in as well? And number two, why take a broken model that we have today and provide a better funnel for a better broken model? Like, why not look for a different model altogether? And it really got us thinking. And we had already signed the space for the other space at this stage. But I then brought in our startups and I said, let's talk about like the model that we're looking to create here and how much value it's going to add to you. And what a lot of the startups said was, we're not actually struggling for a couple of small more investments. We're struggling for the entire angel community. It's disappeared. And the current institutional investment community have now moved up to such high levels of investment that they don't serve the early stage community anymore. So I made a total 180, and we decided to create an investor club, which I haven't mentioned so far, but we did it literally 2 months ago. And if you've ever seen Motley Fool give advice and help on stocks. They're smart guys, and they say to investors, you should invest, but you shouldn't try and do it yourself because you're not smart enough. But we are, and we know it. And I thought, well, if we have very few institutional investments coming into the early stage market, and if equity crowdfunding is now making a big move forward where anybody can now invest in startups, then why would we not create a Motley Fool for ordinary Americans to be able to invest in the Googles and the Yahoos and the Microsofts and the Ubers of the future? And we have I say four things to all of the investors who come in. I say the first thing I say is, look, there's no guarantee in this stuff. You don't know. There's only probability. And your chances are about 1 in 10,000. Our chances are about 1 in 50, 1 in 70, because just we know that it's a rigged game. It always has been. So if we know it's a rigged game, we just have to hope we're betting on the right player in the game that we're already sitting at the table at, right? Because we know that if you're an exited entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, if you're tied in with a VC fund, if you have a CTO who's exited before, if you're in an area that people are pumping a load of money into right now, all of those reasons your probability increases. And because of that, we can spot those guys the same as everyone else. We say, number one, we'll educate you and we'll help you and we'll give you the highest probability that we can give you. Number two, you can make a tremendous amount of money out of this, but you should never, ever invest more than 2.5%, 5% of your disposable income. Ever, 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 because it's a gamble. I mean, it's an awesome gamble. Jeff Bezos invested $250K into Google and he made $3.4 billion. Even if that had been 25K, it would have been 340 million. So there's a lot of money to be made, but it's a gamble. So you can only invest a small amount as you go through. And the next thing is go and see as many startups as you possibly can. And we'll help facilitate that by bringing the startups around the country. And then the final thing is, don't just listen to startups pitches and take everything as proven, because it's not. Use the crowd around you to ask a bunch of questions, which again, we're going to facilitate. So we moved from opening up the Willy Wonka's factory to actually opening up a studio here in the mall, which is now going to open in December. We're going to take a space where we have green screens in there, where our startups can record in there, where we can record, where we can do live shows in there that everybody in the mall is going to be able to see us. And we can actually have as a headquarters for the investment club that we can then send our startups all around America starting from next week. So it's exciting times and kind of embracing the new world of investment as opposed to the old one.
Oh, that is so excellent. And again, so where can people learn more about you?
just come on to Expert Dojo. They can reach out. Anybody can catch me at brian@expertdojo.com. I respond to every single email. We have a great podcast, which is free, of course. But if anybody's looking for investment, you don't even have to reach out. Just listen to our podcast. They're investors who are always just feeding back on what they like and what they don't like and what makes a good investment, which is the art to startup war. But yeah, we're not very hard to find.
Well, Brian McMahon, thank you for being on the show, and thanks for all the amazing work that you do and your team and everyone at Expert Dojo does and what you contribute. I would imagine not only to LA and the surrounding area, but soon, far beyond that. So again, thanks so much for joining us today.
Always, my friend. I love what you do. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you, man.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about Peer Advantage, to submit questions to Leo and our guest, and to subscribe to the Year of the Peer podcast, please visit us at leobottary.com. It's leobottary.com. This podcast is produced by me, Randy Cantrell, hosted, of course, by Leo Bottary. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Vibe Ace. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.